Hello, my name is Alison Woodall and I'm a relocation specialist. That means I get to help you with the financial, logistical and emotional issues that make moving to a new state so stressful. And today I am going to be talking to Mike and Elizabeth, who moved from the Sacramento area to Boise, Idaho when their baby daughter was 7 weeks old. Welcome guys, thank you so much for talking to me.
What was it that made you move?
Well, originally, when we had first started dating, so I'll go back that far, we were talking about potentially leaving California at some point in time, which was a pretty big leap for the both of us, considering we'd both been born in California. We had lots of family in California, really well rooted, not just personally, but historically. And we're talking about the California flag a little bit before we started recording. Michael's family is actually historically part of the, how would you say
it? They were part of the Bear Flag Revolt. Mm-hmm. Who knows, great. I'm like sixth generation Californian. Mm-hmm. And one of my ancestors came across the Oregon Trail, actually through Idaho, stayed at Fort Hall, which is basically Pocatello now. Mm-hmm. And was like a wagon leader. And yeah, came through the Oregon Trail before California was even a state, and got into Sacramento and was told by the Mexican government, foreigners have to leave within 40 days. And they said, we don't have any money, our animals are exhausted, that's not going to happen. And they basically joined what was called the Bear Flag Party. And from there, they were the seed. 30 of those members took the fort, the Mexican fort at Sonoma. So, yeah, so we have family that goes all the way back to the start of the state, and it's an entirely different state now than it used to be. So, Emory, we made sure one of the big reasons we stayed until Emory was born was because we wanted her to be born in California. That was kind of cool because we're generationally from California, and we thought it would be great that she'd be like the 7th generation Californian. So.
Wow. So, I mean, that really is deeply rooted in California.
Yeah. And so that's why the flag is so important to us. Is our history is the Bear Flag. It's the Bear Flag Revolt was, that's kind of a reminder that, our family history and like you said, the flag is just really cool.
Yeah.
So did you move for work, or was it cost of living, or what were your main reasons?
Political freedom. I'll just be open and say political freedom.
What we had chatted about a little bit more, going back to when we were dating, is we didn't necessarily agree with the direction the state was going. Didn't feel like we had much say in the matter, being more of a conservative mindset, to be honest. And so as we continued to see new laws come into play and new realities happen in school systems, we kept thinking, we don't really want to raise a family here. We'd like to go someplace where we feel a little bit more in line with the traditional values. And that's one of the big reasons why we had decided ultimately to make the move. Another thing was, cost of living never really mattered too much for us because we were already living in such a high cost of living area. We felt like we could go almost anywhere we wanted to. So we had taken the steps last year to drive around a couple of states that we really thought we could possibly end up in. And when we hit the region that we're living in right now, we thought, wow, this really feels like home. And so we just kind of followed that trail and decided that, well, this one is actually pretty close to where we could go and visit our family easily in California. And that was really important to us also. So we chose the area because we loved it. We liked the values. We liked the people that we had met here. It was actually fairly similar to where we lived as far as climate, as far as city life goes. So it wasn't so far away from what we were used to. So the move seems huge, but at the same time, we were really comfortable with the way of life here. It's a little slower, which we both love because we were both brought up in smaller communities in California. So northern areas, and that felt a lot more like home to us.
Yeah, we liked that Boise, when we drove through the city, there was, I don't know if we saw any graffiti in downtown Boise. It didn't smell funny. People from the urban areas of California know about the smells. and we didn't get that. Traffic was pretty good. This was last summer though, so COVID was obviously impacting it. We knew that, but even now, the traffic is not anywhere near with what we dealt with in the Sacramento area.
And so when you made the decision to actually move, were you pregnant? Were you quite heavily pregnant, or how did that come about?
Well, we were just actually probably a couple months along when we made the decision. And we knew that we weren't going to move until after our daughter was born. We had a series of events happen in the middle of that decision. You know, we were really having a hard time finding real estate because by the time we started looking, things started booming. And so the offers that we would put in on real estate were being overbid by quite a bit. And the other things that we were dealing with, I was finishing up a master's certification. I was still working full-time, doing school full-time. Michael was working full-time. And we were finding that we were having a lot of complications in our pregnancy, which was really a rough moment for us to consider. Are we still going to do this in the middle of the unknown? Because there could be the possibility there was a high risk involved for us with her. So we kind of just had to go out on faith and believe that we were doing what we needed to be doing. And our family supported us in it. And we gave up our lease, and she was born a month after 3 weeks after we gave up our lease. We were living with my in-laws, his parents at the time, who were hosting us. And we were in process on a house at that time. We thought this would most likely close for us. It ended up closing. And we were in the middle of a very complicated birth.
Wow. And so presumably with pregnancy complications, you can't pack up a house. So
luckily we have a lot of friends and family, really good family.
Yeah.
So
I took care of the little things.
She directed, and she's really good at doing that. And she'd go over to pick up a box, and I'd have to tell her, hey, you can't do this. You know, slow down, sit down. Yeah. Well,
I'm a project manager. That's my trade.
And a great Tetris player.
And a really good Tetris player, yes.
Yeah.
So it worked out.
Okay, wow. Because I mean, I know I was lucky. I had easy pregnancies, and I could have packed up quite a lot of stuff when I was pregnant. But if you have complications, if you're planning a move when you're pregnant, you have to think it may not be that perfect, smooth sailing pregnancy where you can pack up big boxes. And so, I'm glad everything went well. But it's definitely something, if you're thinking about moving while you're pregnant, to get packed up well in advance, or else get lots of help.
Yep.
Yeah, I would actually really encourage the get lots of help part, because I'd say that for the most part, even with all of the complications, I felt strong. I was very active and very energetic through especially that last trimester, which is not very common. But the get lots of help part, I didn't feel obligated to pick up the boxes, and that I think really helped. And so if you're really heavily pregnant, definitely take all the help you can get, and usually everybody's willing to help you.
And in terms of, I know when I had my first baby, I had so much stuff because you don't really know what you need. Did you have tons and tons of baby stuff, or did you just buy it all when you got to Idaho?
We were the opposite. We kept saying, no, we don't need that.
Yeah. And also, there's another benefit because of COVID, the pandemic, we didn't have a baby shower. So people were gifting us either in money or sending us Amazon gift list stuff. And the pieces that we chose were very small. We didn't ask for all of the bells and whistles. And there was another benefit that we didn't know that we were having a little girl. It could have gone either way. So we didn't have a whole bunch of stuff because a lot of it is very gender oriented. And so we didn't know, well, what are we going to decorate with? What are we going to do? All of these different pieces, like for her bedroom even. So we just had some basic stuff.
Okay. Well, and people always, until you've had a baby, you don't realize how little babies, all you really need is something small for them to sleep in and something to carry them around in. And, they actually need very little stuff. It's when they get to about 2 and everything they have is on wheels. Your house just
makes noise. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. And it was actually quite easy to live, in the interim. We She was 7 weeks old when we moved, so we were living out of a suitcase for that entire time between her birth and the time that we moved. And it was very easy to do because you're right. She doesn't require much at that age.
Yeah, and even if it was completely traumatic, she's not going to remember it because
Yep.
she's 7 weeks.
Yeah.
I don't remember it, but she.
Yeah.
But I would say, like, the word for caution that I had is when you go through that much stress, it makes it harder to feed your baby. Are you emotionally aware of what will be happening, and will you be able to handle that? Will you have the support that you need emotionally to walk through that? And even, do you have a lactation team set up for you? You know, things like that.
Mm-hmm. Which you don't really think about with your first baby. With your second one, you're like, oh, I did this, I know what I'm doing. My son was born with a cleft lip, and so we didn't know that when I was pregnant. So he came out, and luckily his palate was intact, but he had all kinds of feeding issues, which I'd never thought about that. I presumed my baby was going to pop out and everything. That would be hard part over with. But actually, for me, the hard part started, like you say, afterwards. Because, well, so when she was 7 weeks old when you moved. Had you got you were closing on the house? Did you know where you were going to move to and all of that, or was that?
Yeah. So when we visited last summer, we visited the Boise area, Meridian, Eagle, kind of that area pretty heavily. We drove through Nampa, but we ended up, we didn't even think to drive through it. It wasn't even on our radar. Mm-hmm. So we just looked at houses kind of everywhere that fit several requirements we had. And then when we found the house in this town, we looked at, I looked at crime stats and talking to people in the group, in the Facebook group that had been here and listening to kind of what they thought of the area. We kind of based it off of that and said, well, I mean, everything checks out. So that's literally why we moved with that. We had honestly no idea. We hadn't seen the town. We hadn't seen the house. I think when we made the offer, our real estate agent had seen another house that was the same floor plan, but not this house.
He did a walkthrough on the same floor plan in a different neighborhood.
But it was flipped, I believe. Mm-hmm. So we had a good idea of what we wanted or what we were getting into, but really took a faith jump, and I think it's worked out really well. We ended up loving this town. Yeah. We love the people here. It's kind of like a more rural farmish town, and nice and quiet. Mm-hmm. And the people here are great. The neighborhood's great. The house is great. It's a typical, builder grade house that we're going to kind of grow into and work on throughout the years, but it's perfect first house for us. So,
mm-hmm. so it's everything you hoped it would be. Have you gone through a winter now?
No, we moved in, what was it? Beginning of April. So we've been here for 5 weeks or something like that.
Oh, so really, really new. But okay, because when I think of Idaho, I think quite a lot of snow in certain places, but that's I don't know the area that well.
Chilly, but that's the extent. We've seen some rains. We had a good, weird, like I don't know, downpour come through last weekend that was totally unexpected. It was just, there's some clouds, and then thunder, lightning, downpour, and then it was over.
We also had a strange windstorm that
there's some good wind. Yeah.
And it brought lightning and thunder. No rain, but just a windstorm that just swept everything. Yeah. So a little bit different than what we're used to.
Yeah, so we'll see. This winter will be interesting because it has been chillier than we're used to, but at the same time here today it's probably in the low 80s, and back home in Sacramento it was I think it's supposed to be in the high 90s today or something like that.
Yeah, it's hot out there because
I heard it was hot.
So Lathrop, I'm an hour south of Sacramento.
Yeah,
so I think our weather's very similar.
It's supposed to be hot today, right? Or it is hot.
Yeah, when we moved in, it was 107 degrees because we moved in August, and the hills were on fire, and you just have to embrace the whole experience of wherever you move to. Right. So is there anything that obviously you've given lots of advice about moving with a small baby, moving sight and sort of unseen, just that leap of faith. Obviously you're still very new to the area. Do you have any regrets, or is everything just still new and fun?
Yeah, I don't know if I'd say we have regrets. We miss friends and family quite a bit. we're still very connected to everybody back in California. It's easy to pick up a phone or see somebody, send them a message or whatever nowadays. And it's super comforting to know that we're only 8.5 hours away. If we wanted to run back for the weekend, we could do that, and we're going to be in a couple weeks.
Neither of us are shy about meeting people and making friends, and where we don't really want to be away from the close friends and family that we have, we feel pretty confident that we won't be lonely, so to speak, here. Already we've been to a neighbor's barbecue. We've met the people all over our street, and gosh, it took us 2 years to really get to know hardly anybody in our street where we used to live. And even then, we were challenged to even know names. So, it's just a completely different feel. It is. It feels like the community here is a lot more caring and giving than from where we came from. And that is ultimately, one of the biggest benefits to the move so far, is to be able to feel so welcome.
I would throw out probably the biggest regret, and I bet Elizabeth would agree with me. I wish we had moved probably like a year ago, bought a house like a year ago.
Yeah.
Because even last summer when we were starting to look at prices here, they've shot up dramatically. So we paid quite a bit more than we really wanted to originally. We still bought well within what we could afford, because that's crucial to our principles and our beliefs. But it would have been nice to save, 10%, 12, 13% of what we ended up spending.
Yeah,
so
that would have been nice.
Do it. I guess do it now. I'm not a real estate genius, so I don't know what the market's gonna do. But just sitting on your loafers is probably just gonna.
I think even real estate geniuses really don't actually know. There's enough people leaving California to keep those real estate prices high. And like you say, the advantage of being in a state that's quite close is significant. And particularly, I'm sure the grandparents are very excited that you didn't move to South Carolina or Florida.
Yeah,
absolutely.
They absolutely are.
Yeah. They're going to be right behind us, actually. So.
Yeah. My parents were, believe it or not, I moved to Atlanta first when I moved to the USA, and they were really glad because I'd been in Australia before that. So the idea of me living in Australia and having grandchildren in Australia was just, you can't get to Australia from anywhere in less than a day, but at least with Atlanta, they could get there within, 12 hours. So it is, grandparents, they're grateful for small mercies, I think.
Yeah, right.
Oh, wonderful. And you presumably, you're presumably off work right now, being a mom. And did you take your job with you, or did you get a new job when you moved to Idaho?
Yeah, we both still have the same job we had in California. Elizabeth is on maternity leave, but through this week. So next week she'll be back to work, and we'll have to figure out how we're both going to work with the baby and her needs. But yeah, so we're both working for the same company.
Some companies will renegotiate your wage based on your current cost of living situation. So if your physical address changes, they might refigure your salary based on that. So that's a big caution. It's not easy to just up and move. And then I do know some tales of some people who've gone remote during the pandemic and moved to another state and lost their job, and then suddenly they don't have the income that they had before, and it was a much lower cost of living, and they purchased their home at a price they couldn't keep up without their income. So that was one thing that we were very particular about when we did decide to move. We purchased a house that was within our means, even if we worked in our same jobs with our current cost of living here. So if we were forced to get a job in our physical location and we had to get that physical cost of living salary option, then we'd still be able to afford our living. So that was a big thing that I really would caution most people to think about before they just decide to up and move. Like, that's a huge, huge part of it, because you don't want to go through all of this stress to move your house, to move your family, and then lose your house because you don't have the income to follow with it. So yeah, that's something. Another thing we did was we saved up, we followed the Dave Ramsey principles. And so we saved up 6 months of living in our current situation with our current bills prior to moving. Yeah. And that was a goal of ours before we moved. So that also gives us a lot of
peace of mind.
Yeah, just huge peace of mind knowing that if, either Michael or I, or both of us were to lose our jobs, we could live like we live currently for 6 months while we figure out what the next step is. So yeah, that's my encouragement to everybody. If you're going to do this, do it well, do it, go after it, be tenacious and make your dreams happen.
Yeah, that's such good advice. And we also went through the whole Dave Ramsey thing. I spent most of my emergency budget or whatever I'm supposed to have. We took 6 weeks to drive from Florida to California with our kids.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. It was just amazing. When your baby's probably like 7 or above, then they actually remember it. Because I don't remember a lot of the trips that I took when I was younger than 7 or 8. But yeah, we took 6 weeks. And of course, it was the height of COVID. So everything was open. We got to stay in the Rocky Mountains in places we would never have stayed normally because they'd have been booked to, 6 months in advance. But it cost a fortune. We did it as cheaply as possible, but I don't regret it for a minute. And the experiences that my kids had. And when I see in a lot of people in these Facebook groups that say, well, my husband's going to drive the big truck towing the trailer and it's going to take him 4 days to get to wherever, and I'm flying with the kids, I always think, gosh, that's such a wasted opportunity, because this country is so beautiful and there's so many things to see. And it's like you say, it's about the experience. It's about why are you leaving California? Why are you moving to a new state? It's for a different way of life. So you may as well get started enjoying that life, before you get to your new home.
Yeah.
Well, that's wonderful. Anything else you want to add? I've taken a lot of your time.
But, we are looking forward to making some trips out and around, just kind of exploring. We've only been able to do that a little bit, but that would probably be a big thing. And then, meeting with people, if it's Facebook groups or, volunteer groups in the area, I think that's going to be big for us, is to get to know people in our area and make that solid connection that we had back in California as well.
And babies are kind of like puppies. If you go to the park with the baby, everybody wants to look at your baby and talk to you. And the friendships that you make when your children are young, when you're going through all those milestones, those friends, they stay with you forever. All my kids grew up in Georgia. So those friends that I have who went through, preschool and elementary school and everything with me, they'll be friends for life. So you've moved at the perfect time to build those really solid friendships.
Yeah, great.
I really appreciate you talking with me. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's nice to meet you.
Thanks for putting this together.